So this is a catchy title from you, Tales Temples Tell. Actually, this is the location first. If you want to know how to get there, it's past Pune and it's about 200 kilometers, about 4 hours. And this is the cover of the book, and this is also the, when you from outside, from a little far away, you can see this. And this doesn't look like a medieval temple. It looks more like a Peshwa time temple. But you have to step inside to find the difference. The outside is very deceptively simple because there is a wall around it and the spires have been built in the 18th century. So I'm going to talk about a few things. Lots of tales have been told in the Bhuleshwara temple, but I'm not starting chronologically either. I'm starting with Gunadhya, which is one of the, I almost think I have never seen a Gunadhya panel anywhere in the, whatever the temples I have visited. And he was there around before, in the first half of the first millennium, Satavahana times. Then I'm going to jump and come to Brahmana Swami, only a few slides. And he was in the 17th century, 18th century. And then I go to Mahabharata, which actually is supposed to have taken place before Christ. But the manuscripts, written manuscripts that the standard edition has been prepared from, are 12th to 13th century. Then I go to Ramayana. I like to remind people that Ramayana is a kavya, whereas Mahabharata is itihas. That means Mahabharata is supposed to document something that has happened. Of course, original was 20,000 verses, which has now gone to 100,000 by 1200. So a lot of inserted material, foreign material, but it's still history. Whereas Ramayana is a kavya, it's an epic poem. And Triadic Panels are the most enigmatic part of Bhuleshwar. I'm just going to show you one slide from one of the panels because there's too many of them to be described. So I'm starting with Vadda Kaha. Vadda Kaha, Vadda means Bada. Kaha means Katha. So these are stories, which are interwoven stories, kind of like the Arabian Nights. And they were originally written in a language called Paishachi. This was the language of the people who lived in the Vindhyaranya, that means the forests around Vindhya, around Vidarbha. And this Gunadhya was a contemporary, or no, he was before Dandin, who was in the Pallava court. That means 7th century. That means it's fairly certain that Gunadhya was the first half of the first millennium. Now, originally written in Paishachi, they were translated by 3 different authors into Sanskrit. And in the 19th and 20th century, two British scholars were responsible for bringing this to the notice of everybody. And they called it part of the knowledge base of civilization as we know it. That was, the first one was 1880s, was Tawney, and the 20s, it was Spencer. The story that is depicted here at Bhuleshwar is just one large panel which explains how the story got written, got publicized. And it starts in the court of the Satavahana king, in whose court Gunadhya was one of the ministers. And the king and his queens were frolicking in the river. And one of his queens was well read and she could speak Sanskrit, and she got tired of playing. And she says in Sanskrit, Modakaihi paritadaya mam, which sounds like beat me with modak. Actually, it is ma udakaihi. That means do not splash water on me. And the poor king, who did not know Sanskrit, ordered modaks to be brought. So the queen could be beaten with those. But everyone laughed and he was very, very hurt. And he retired to the quarters and refused to come out. So this is where Gunadhya and his colleague, Sharvavarman, came in. They approached the king and convinced him that he could be taught Sanskrit. So there was no need to sculpt. So Gunadhya said it will take six years. Sharvavarman said it could be done in 6 months. And Gunadhya naturally wagered. He said, it's not possible. I'll wager you that if you succeed in teaching the king in 6 months, I will give up Sanskrit, I'll give up Prakrit, I'll give up Deshabhasha. That means all the languages. And it so happened that Sharvavarman somehow managed to teach the king Sanskrit in 6 months. So Gunadhya retired to the forests of India, where he learned Paishachi, and he heard many stories in Paishachi language. And each of the stories he wove into those long stories. And he wrote a poem about each long story. And he wrote 7 such poems. And he wrote them, these are exaggeration, he wrote them with blood because there was no ink to be had in the forest. And it took him 7 years to complete. When it was finished, he sent it with 2 of his disciples to the king. But the king had become arrogant. He had learned Sanskrit by now, and he said, I'm not going to look at a book written in blood in Paishachi, and threw them out. So they came back to him with, they were very sad, crestfallen, and they said, this is what happened. So Gunadhya was also heartbroken. He lit a fire, and he would read each folio, because this is the time before 500 AD. So books were written, or anything written was on bark, birch bark, or any bark, and they were long folios. And so he took up each folio, read it aloud, and cast it into the fire. And because he was reading aloud, gradually all the forest creatures gathered around him to listen to him, and were so engrossed in listening that they forgot to eat or drink. Back in the capital, what happened was the king felt ill. He felt unwell, he fell ill. So his Vaidyas said that this was because the meat that he was eating was fresh, but it was sapless. So the king was furious. He sent for the hunters. The hunters said, we can't help it, because all the animals in the forest are sitting around an ascetic and listening to his stories. And they're not eating or drinking, so the meat, what we bring is fresh, but it's not at all juicy, but dried up. So he was wonderstruck. The king was wonderstruck. He went with the hunters to the forest, recognized Gunadhya, repented, and requested him to give him the stories. But by that time, only 1 story was left. The other 6 had been reduced to ashes. So the king returned to the capital, and he got them translated from Paishachi into Prakrit and publicized them, along with the narrative about how the stories came about. And they became well known, and were, as I mentioned before, Dandin also refers to these stories by Gunadhya. Now, Bhuleshwar has a large panel which portrays Gunadhya, and it portrays the episode where he's sitting and reading them out and casting them to the fire. And I'm sure that such a panel, unlikely to have been there anywhere, at least in Maharashtra. And now this is the panel. You can judge, because it's in the dark and it's about 15 feet above the floor. It's difficult to get a good photo, but you can see this entire width of the corridor of the complex is occupied by this one panel. And I'll show you in the next slide. These are the 2 enlarged photos. The first one shows you, the top one shows you Gunadhya sitting in the center and the animals around him. And the lower photo, again, you notice how it is, you can see that this is the stand on which the stacks of folios are kept, and he has picked up one and he's reading it out. And these are animals, elephant on one side, monkey on the other side. Here there are, you can see a tiger, and there are, in the trees, there are other animals. And so this is the sea. This is the entire panel, 15 feet or so long. And this is these are the individual on the left side. On the right side, you can see better. There is a tiger here, a horse here, and this was probably a snake somewhere. you can see monkeys, you can see birds, and that is the panel. Now, why it is important is because each temple is usually associated with a sect. And this one was, it was definitely associated with the Natha sect. And Nathas have taken it upon themselves to provide literature in the local language, which is the practice actually in the Buddhist and Jain literature. All of their literature was in Prakrit, Pali. But Nathas have also given prominence to something that was written originally in Paishachi. So this was their creed anyway. They treated everything equally. And even in the panels that we will see, divinities, people, languages, everything is on one footing. This is typical of Nathas. So now I go to the next, just allude to him. There's not much there, but this is Brahmana Swami, who was a long-lived person. He died at 96. He took Samadhi at 96, but 1649 to 1745. And he was a wheeler and dealer. Actually, he was in Konkan first, and he had even made friends with the Siddhi of Janjira. A Siddhi had given him an elephant, actually, as a token of friendship. Anyway, afterwards, things started to sour, so he shifted to near Bhuleshwar, and eventually in nearby in Davarchi. Now, he was the guru. He was revered by Chhatrapati Shahu, that is Shivaji Maharaj's grandson. He was also at the time of Peshwas, so Bajirao Peshwa, Chimaji Appa, Maratha Sardars. And he lived a royal life. I mean, he was an ascetic, he practiced yoga, he worshipped, he was learned, he had been to Kashi, Varanasi. But he also liked good things, like he liked to develop orchards, he liked a good horse, he liked a good gun, and he really liked to live. And he did a lot of work for in our times PWD, British times PWD would do. He made a lot of, even carved out ghats, built wells. And for Bhuleshwar, he spent nearly a lakh of rupees. These accounts are there in his biography, and well-maintained correspondence to restore the spires. And it was here that Chimaji Appa was also would visit him. And before going on the campaign to try and capture the Basin fort, that is Vasai fort, Chimaji Appa had come to see Brahmendra Swami, seek his blessing. So Brahmendra Swami told him that yes, you will win definitely. And as soon as you win, you must send 125 gold coins, putara, and a silver mask for Bhuleshwar as a token of gratitude. Now that mask is still there in the custody of his heirs, the heirs of his secretary. But now, in view of the times, it's kept in the locker and brought out only on Mahashivratri or Shravan Somwar and occasions like that. And this is just something to show from an excerpt from his correspondence. Putalya Savase Bhulobaz Mugut Savase Rupayacha. Like we say Vithoba, so he says Bhuloba, Bhuleshwar, fondly referred to as Bhuloba. And this is a letter from Chimaji Appa. He says Saransh, in conclusion, Swamincha Ashirvade is because of your blessings that Karya Siddhite Pauli. That means it is because of his blessings that he could win Basin fort. So we go to the Mahabharata panels. These are I have a bit of text to explain, because Mahabharata is there everywhere. So what's the big deal about Bhuleshwar? Even Ellora on one side has an entire panel of lots of episodes from Mahabharata, on the other side from Ramayana. But this is very unique in the sense that the episodes and the way they are depicted is important. And the reason is not storytelling, but it is to impart the essence of dharma. Dharma is not religion. Dharma is how you behave in society. And dharma is what sustains society. A society has to be coherent. It has to follow rules of conduct. And this had to be done because you must remember this temple is like 12th century, early 12th century. People were not literate. They didn't know Sanskrit. And remember Natha's Naneshwar translated Bhagavad Gita into Naneshwari. But that was 100 years or more than 100 years after Bhuleshwar. So at this time, there was nothing for the common man. And the Bhuleshwar Acharyas have very patiently and very thoughtfully carved out these Mahabharata sequences. They were attractive figures. The most important thing is that they were unambiguous. That means the way they are portrayed, you cannot make a mistake about identifying and thereby to understand what they are conveying. And they tally with the text, because standard text that is published by Bhandarkar Oriental Institute is a critical edition after sifting through hundreds of manuscripts. They have published it, and the sculptures tally with that. So, and I just want to, this misconception, Dharma is not religion. It is a sadhan. Sadhan in the sense is the means. Means of what? It is the code of conduct that sustains society. And it is not sadhana, but it is not sadhya, but it's a sadhana. That means just a tool. It is not the end. And also it is not simple and unitary. How the king behaves is Raja Dharma. How an ascetic would behave would be according to Moksha Dharma. Apad Dharma is how you behave in the face of a calamity. Dana Dharma, this is a term commonly used. Dana is one of the dharmas, and therefore common people very willingly give alms. So Dana is one of the dharmas of the common people. So Dharma, this is important, has to change with times to keep pace with changing social norms. And this is also mentioned in the Mahabharata, that Dharma has to change. It cannot be static. Now, another important thing is Bhuleshwar doesn't have Puranic stories. There is no God rushing to protect the devotee. Whatever is there is portrayed are battles. Those are fought by people. So they compete, they fight, they resolve the issues and restore peace. So that these are the episodes which are deeds performed by humans in a battle. Now remember, life itself is a battle for man. And here conscription is not voluntary. It comes compulsorily with birth. And here the battles are not just the ones on the battleground, but also with real situations in life. So I'm going to start. There are 3 panels. One is from Adi Parva. Adi means the first beginning. So the first Mahabharata has 18 Parvas. This one is the first one, and there are 11 episodes from it. And again, I stress that these many of them are not seen on other temples, because the intention is not storytelling, but conveying to people how to behave in situations. Here, the size is used. It's an excellent method or example of mass communication, a non-verbal mass communication. The size here of the figures denotes their relative importance. And each panel has a concept to convey. Like Adi Parva conveys Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. That means the central figure there is Arjuna, who is an excellent archer. He excels in his archery. Bhishma, of course, there are 3 episodes of Bhishma Parva. He is the grandfather, Bhishma Pitamaha, and excuse me, he has always worked without expecting anything in return, and he gets nothing in return anyway. And then you have the remaining Parvas, Drona, Karna, Shalya, and Shalya Parva, which are the remaining Yuddha Parvas. And here what they illustrate, this is important. Yoga means an expedient measure to get over a difficult situation. And actually this is what I'm quoting. Te yuyam dharmam utsrujya jayam rakshata pandava. That means if you're fighting a battle in which you are on the correct side, then even if you have to cast aside dharma temporarily, that is okay, that is allowable. And that is what is portrayed in each of the 4 episodes. So now, enough of the text. I'm showing you. This is the mandapa, that is the hall of the Bhuleshwara temple. And you see that this is the Bhishma Parva panel. There are 3 episodes in it. This is the battles, the episodes from the battle, Drona Parva, Karna Parva, again Drona Parva, and Shalya Parva. Now, I do not have a photo going continuously this way, so I have shown you, I have included a elevation. That is, this was drawn by Henry Cousins in the 1890s. So this is the battles, the episodes from the battles. This is the north porch entrance. That means the porch is open on 3 sides. This is the north door, and this is the panel Adi Parva. And this is, I have illustrated, I have given a photo of the Adi Parva. Now you please remember that the panel has 11 episodes, but they are carved where they could be fitted properly. So you notice that they are not linear. Like this is the first episode. The episode is, I'll explain later, but this is on the left side, large figures. On the right side, also large figure. And in the center is Arjuna, again full length, because he is shooting, this is the Draupadi Swayamwar episode. And this is the basin of water in which the fish, which is mechanical fish, which is whirling above his head, is reflected, and he has to take aim and shoot that fish. And he succeeds in it. So this is the 5th episode, and so on. These episodes go back and forth. So I'll show you the 5 episodes first. See, this is where Duryodhana and Bhima are fighting each other. Then you have Draupadi Swayamwar. This is Draupadi with a Varamala standing there, and her father, brother, etc. Third one. Now this is the kind of episode that is not seen in many places. This is Krishna. This is Balarama. Now Pandavas had not met Krishna yet, because they had just escaped from the Lakshagriha fire, and they were in hiding, and they had come here incognito as Brahmins, and they're sitting in this. But Krishna recognizes them. Now Krishna, you can see, is four-armed, divinity, but I told you again, divinity or otherwise, everyone has the same size depiction, unless it is important to denounce or to praise. So Balarama, Krishna makes a signal to Balarama. He sees it, he accepts it, but the point is, neither of them make it, they do not make it public. They keep it to themselves, because they understand that Pandavas are incognito. They do not want to be exposed. Then this is the Swayamwar. This is Arjuna shooting for the arrow, and he succeeds. And this is the other episodes. Again, this 6th episode is hardly ever, I'm sure it's never portrayed. Because what happens is, after Arjun wins Draupadi, all the other kings are in a great turmoil. They say, teacher ko kisko diya this beautiful girl? So they are making a ruckus. So Dhritarashtra, Yudhishthir, this is the elder brother. You see, he's bigger. And these are the twins, Nakul and Sahadev. They quietly leave the place, so that people do not see 5 brothers together and recognize that they could be Pandavas. So he leaves quietly. Now you see, body language is used everywhere to separate the episodes. You can see the feet of these people are turned this way. The feet of these people are turned this way. That means this episode is Draupadi Swayamwar. This is where Yudhishthira is leaving with his brothers. Now 7th episode again is Draupadi and Arjun. But here the Arjun is shown much larger, to indicate that whereas here he was shown really small, because they thought he is just a nobody. Here he has one Draupadi, and in their eyes now he is large. So, and then 11th is the Swayamwar, 9th is the where Kunti inadvertently says share, and so on. So these are the episodes. Now this is, whereas say place like Ambarnath, the proportions of divinities, because mostly divinities are there on the walls, they are fixed. But there is no such a Shilpa Shastra for humans, and therefore he has portrayed Arjuna before he tries as a small person, and even in the Mahabharata, the shloka says refers to him as Battu. Battu is a kind of a deprecatory term, saying that very small runt. And this is when after same Arjun, after he has won Draupadi, and you notice this Draupadi and this Draupadi, they're the same size because her status has not changed. Now this is the 11th episode. Now this is the kind of episode that is not seen at all, I'm sure. Now this is the marriage. After Draupadi was won and after Kunti said share, then the marriage took place, and the person sitting here is the eldest, that is Yudhishthira. Now there is actually a poem by Padma Sachdevin Dogra called Bhatako Nahi Dhananjay. That means it describes the marriage ceremony where Yudhishthir and Draupadi is seated next to him, and she's trying to meet, but Arjuna is sitting with downcast eyes. He knows that she's looking at him, but he doesn't have the guts to face her because he doesn't know, he feels impotent. And this, in a way, the Acharya has portrayed here, because you see this man is in a dance step, but there's a chhatra over his head. Chhatra over his head. That means it's likely to be Arjuna. It is not just a dancer. So this is what I have given. I have given evidence here, evidence in the form of text, that although Nartakas were supposed to be there, but he has a chhatra on his head. So he's not a Nartaka. And it's in all likelihood, because what I think he's trying to convey is that accepting social norms is advocated. You want to keep society peaceful and everything, that is fine. And yet you can feel frustrated and outraged and just keep to yourself, but you cannot avoid, you cannot pretend that you are happy. That's my interpretation. Now we go to the next one, which is deals with the battles. That is, there are 18 parvas, as I said, and the Mahabharata, the battle lasted 18 days. Everything in Mahabharata is like 18. You know, you have 18 parvas. You have Atra Akshahuni, that means the number of soldiers and the Sainya, the total number of people fighting is in the terms of 18, and it has 18 adhyayas. And the 18-day war, this Adi Parva we have seen, that was the first one. Bhishma Parva is the 6th one. Drona is the 7th one. Karna is the 8th one. And Shalya is the 9th one. Now the 18-day war, the first 10 days, Bhishma was the Senapati. Drona led the army for the next 5 days. Then Karna led it for 2 days, and Shalya barely a day, almost half a day. Before evening he was, actually by afternoon he was dead. So the two panels that I showed you in the photograph and then in the sketch was the right part was the Adi Parva, but the left, these are the Bhishma, Drona, Karna and Shalya Parva. Now this is Bhishma Parva. There are only 3 episodes. Now, this is where the mass communication skill and the accuracy of depiction is very important, because you see, this is the first panel. You see 2 chariots opposite each other, but the warriors, the figures of warriors have eroded or they have been destroyed or vandalized, whatever. But what they didn't realize was that although the warrior is absent, the charioteer and the flags are very important. Flags are flying. And from the flags, we can identify the figures. So this is the 9th day of war between Arjuna and Bhishma. This is the 10th day of war where again I said that you have to make measures which are not palatable, but they are necessary to win when you're on the side of the right, that means the right, correct side. So this you can see, whereas there are two chariots here, there are three here. This is one, and opposite there are two. Now who are they? That can be seen from the, they can be identified from the flags. And this third is the famous Uttarayan, that means Bhishma fell and he is lying on a bed of arrows and waiting for this sun to enter, start its northward journey. So this is the 9th day. Now the thing is, 9th day, you can see this is Sri Krishna, that is Partha Sarathi, Arjuna's Sarathi, because you can see he's forearmed. He has a chakra and a shankha in his hand. This is Kapi Dhwaja. Arjuna's Dhwaja was a Hanuman on his Dhwaja. Arjuna's figure has fallen off, but these two remain. Now here, this figure has fallen off, but this is a makara, that is an imaginary animal. I have the next slide that shows an enlarged photograph, but this is not what it described. What is described is Ketu means flag, Pancha Tarena, there are 5 stars. Talena Mahata, on a tall Pamira tree, there are 5 stars. And that doesn't make sense, because in a way, 5 would identify with the Pandavas. So the Acharya in 12th century has dared to depict something which he thinks is more logical. How is it more logical? This is the enlarged photo of the, I'll go back again. This is the Makara Dhwaja, and this is the enlarged photo. You can see it's a Makara, it's a mythical animal, which looks like a front is like a crocodile, and rear is different. It's imaginary. Now the thing is, Bhishma was the son of Ganga. He is called Gangeya in all the places, and Makara is the Vahan of Ganga. Now, it would be logical for Bhishma to have the Dhwaja, the Vahan of his mother. So this is Makara Dhwaja. Having done that, when you come to the 10th day, you find that now the single Ratha, single chariot on the left has a Makara Dhwaja. That means this is Bhishma. Sri Krishna is there, Parthasarathi. Kapi Dhwaj is there. That means this is Arjuna. That means this must be Shikhandi, because we know the story that Bhishma, actually at the end of the 9th day, the text says that the Pandavas with Krishna went to Bhishma and asked him, you have caused so much destruction and you've killed so many people, and we don't see any way of killing you. So please tell us in what way we could kill you. I mean, in better words, but that is the gist. And he said, I will not fight somebody who has a Dhwaj which is Amangal. That means not auspicious. That was one of the things. He said he will not fight a woman. Now, Shikhandi's story is that at birth he was a woman, and then he became a man. So as far as Bhishma was concerned, he was not a man in that sense. So therefore, his Dhwaja, it's not, I could not find anywhere the description. But only thing is that it was supposed to be inauspicious. So what is it? I'm going to discuss that later because it is linked with some other things. So the Dhwajas I'm discussing separately. So in the Drona Parva, this is the other third panel. This is Drona Parva, Karna Parva, Ghatotkacha, that is again Drona Parva, and Shalya Parva. So here every episode, some expedient measure is used. That means something which would not normally be ethical, but it has been used because it is that is the only way they could win. Now here I am describing the role of the flags. I have told you that you can identify unambiguously the flags. And see, the difference between Mahabharata and Ramayana is Ramayana was a free-for-all. There were monkeys, and Rama's side, there were hardly any soldiers. There bears, monkeys, and they were fighting with anything they could lay their hands on, stones. But Mahabharata was a Dharma Yuddha. That means it had predetermined conditions, and the two opponents had to know each other, and they had to fight with the same weapons, and they had to follow a certain code of conduct. And why the flags are important from practical reason, you can see that if there are Atra Akshoni, that means there are so many people fighting in Kurukshetra, that is where the battle took place. On the dusty plains, it was not a paved road, it was a dusty plain where there would be chariots, elephants, horses, Chaturanga Sena, foot soldiers. So all these four kinds of warriors, those in chariots, those atop elephants, those riding horses, and foot soldiers. They were jostling for space in the dusty plains, and it was a Dharma Yuddha, means you had to challenge your enemy and fight him with the same weapon. How would you recognize him in this dust rising all over? So the only way you could recognize if the flag was flying high and shimmering and shiny, only then you could identify the person that you were to fight. And what I realized after after reading the descriptions of the flags, is that one, of course, practical, for me, the Bhuleshwara episodes can be identified conclusively on the basis of the flags. There is no ambiguity at all. But some of them, I think, is kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of aspect, in the sense they tend to comment on the flag. Now, for example, Ashwatthama was the son of Dronacharya. In the end, he is the one who surreptitiously killed all the children of the Pandavas at night while they were sleeping. So Ashwatthama, as opposed to his father, Dronacharya. And Ashwatthama's flag is Simhalangul. Excuse me, that means the tail of a lion. Now, who wants a standard, a flag, the tail of a lion as the symbol on your flag? But this is probably a comment on his nature. Another eloquent symbol is Karna's. Karna's flag depicted a golden chain which is used for tying elephants. Now, this is absolutely a poignant reminder of his status, because he was beholden to Duryodhana. He was like an elephant, but he was tied because of these. Duryodhana made him a king. Duryodhana sort of raised him high up. So this is also a symbol that also comments on the status. Bhima had a roaring lion. Everything about him is power. Whereas Duryodhana had a gem-studded elephant. That means he wanted royalty. Elephant is always a symbol of royalty, but it is also splendor because they're a gem-studded elephant. So Bhima represents brute strength, whereas Duryodhana liked pomp. And the Ghatotkacha's flag is a red-headed vulture. Now remember, Ghatotkacha is the son of Hidimba. That means he's Hidimba. He's referred to as Hidimba. That means Hidimba was a demoness. They lived in the forest. She was not exactly Nagara Sanskruti. And this discrimination was there everywhere. And without any, there was no shame about it as far as those people were concerned. This was this fact as far as they were concerned. So Ghatotkacha was not Nagara, and therefore a red-headed vulture he could, because otherwise for our society, vulture is considered inauspicious. And it would not be, nobody would have made that into the symbol on the flag. So the flags have been important in all these to identify unambiguously. The fight between Bhishma and Arjuna, I showed you, we've already seen the two chariots opposing each other. Then 10th day, when Bhishma is fought by Arjuna from behind Shikandi. And that is when Drona falls. Then Bhishma falls. And then we have the Drona and Drishtadyumna battle. And then we have Yudhishthira and Shalya. So these flags, these are some that I have collected. For example, Bhima, the symbol on his flag was a large lion with red eyes. and I have, this is not important for the talk today, but this is essential for the book to give references for, I mean, I am 100% sure that I'm right, but I must cite the correct references. So, Ghatotkacha, Raktottamanga Grudra. Drona had Jambunadamai, that means golden Vedi, Kamandalu and Dhanusha, because here was a guru who was also a warrior. So Kamandalu and Dhanusha. Unfortunately, at Bhuleshwar only the Kamandalu is seen, but that is enough because nobody else has that symbol on his flag. Shalya, who was the king of Madhya Desha, on his dhwaja was a Sita. Sita is actually means a furrow. When you're plowing a field, it results in a furrow, and that is called Sita. And that is why Bhumi Kanya Sita was named Sita, because she was found in a furrow by Janaka. Now, this is it results from plowing, but it would be difficult to depict a furrow on a flag. From far, it should be visible and identifiable. So, therefore, they have chosen here a more recognizable precursor, that is the plowshare itself. Yudhishthira, he has two mrudungas joined to each other, and they are the ones which mechanically speak. And Karna, like I mentioned before, is a golden chain for the elephant. Now, this is the Drona Vada scene. Now, just look at this very carefully. This is one warrior on his chariot, in his chariot. The Dhanushaban, they have fallen off, bows and arrows have fallen off. But this is Drishtadyumna. You can see his foot, the remaining foot. That means this was his original stance. But this is the first instance where something unethical was done. There was a rumor spread that Ashwatthama is dead. Ashwatthama was Dronacharya's son, and when he heard that, he put down his bow and arrow and he sat down and he was not fighting. Now, what does Drishtadyumna do? From here, he drops his bow and arrow, he grabs a shield and a sword, and he jumps. You can see him jumping. This is the original position. He's jumping, and he jumps onto the chariot of Drona, holds him by the hair, cuts off his head, and throws it in under the hooves of the horses. So everything is exactly, I mean, this is like a jigsaw puzzle where every piece fits. And it is further nailed, so to speak, by the dhwajas. This is the enlarged image of Dronacharya's dhwaj. This is Dronacharya because there is a kamandalu on his flag. This is Drishtadyumna because what is depicted here is the ram with a man riding it. Now, Agni, he was born of a yajna. That means he was born of the fire. He was an ansha of Agni. And therefore, just as Bhishma, his flag was the Makara, this one's flag was the god Agni himself. So this, like I said, everything fits in. So this cannot be any other episode but Drona's Vadha episode. And here again, what was wrong? They had falsely spread rumors. Partially true because Ashwatthama was also the name of an elephant, and they killed that elephant and spread the rumor that Ashwatthama is dead. This is the enlarged photo of the ram and the Agni riding it. Now we come to Ghatotkacha. Now this is also very important because Ghatotkacha's Vada was important for Arjuna's safety. Now you can see this is Ghatotkacha. The whole, this, he was fighting, I mean, he was wreaking havoc in this army. I mean, he was killing everybody left and right. And this is the elephant brigade that is starting to march. What does he do? You can see how powerful is shown. With one of his fists, he has taken hold of one of the legs of the elephant, turned him upside down. He sort of swirled him around and threw him away. When that is seen, that the elephants turn right around and start running backwards. Now, initially, I thought this was Bhima because Bhima was also charged by the elephant brigade and he also defeated them. But this is where I say that in Mahabharata, the 1200, that is 12th century, this was accepted. Ghatotkacha was a Hidimba, that means Hidimba's son, and he was not a Nagara, he was an Aborigine in that sense, or a demon. So therefore you see not a crown on his head, but Jatabhara. That is definitely, it means that he is not Bhim, he is Ghatotkacha. And I told you that this every episode has a yoga in it. Now, when Ghatotkacha was killed, how was he killed? Because he was causing so much damage. Krishna requests, Duryodhana requested Karna to use his Amogha Shakti given to him by Indra. Shakra is Indra, that Amogha Shakti, which he had been saving for Arjuna to kill Arjuna. Arjuna would have died definitely. But this caused Duryodhana to persuade Karna to use it on Ghatotkacha. So that Ghatotkacha died. And when he died, and this is very clearly written in the text, that Haidimbam Nihitam Društva, that means when Krishna saw him die, and whereas all the Pandavas were Deenamasas, they were very sad and they had tears in their eyes, Vasudevastu Harshena Mahatabi Paripluta. Vasudeva, that is Krishna, was dancing with joy. He was making a loud noise. Why? When Arjuna was also puzzled and he asked him. So then Krishna explained to him that Shaktim Ghatotkache Nemam. When I made it necessary for Karna to use the Indradatta Shakti, Chakradatta Shakti, that is the reason why I made Ghatotkacha fight and made Karna use that Shakti to save you. And that is why he is happy that it is done. Now, this is important because this putting this episode next to the Karna episode helped identify the Karna episode conclusively. Now, this is the last episode. This is the end of the, this is the 18th day. Shalya only lasted for half a day. This is Shalya, this is Yudhishthira, again, based on the flag. Now, see how eloquent are the flags. Yudhishthira has a mrudunga, that means there are two mrudungas joined. It's like a two-faced person, my reading. And this is the face which mechanically produces the sound. Now, here is a person, Yudhishthira, who is referred to as Dharmaraja. And he stakes his wife in a game of dice. Is obviously has two standards. And therefore, I totally interpret this to mean that. Now, here is Shalya. Shalya was, as I mentioned before, was the king of Madhya Desha. And instead of a Sita, you have the, you can see the plowshare on his flag. This is the plowshare on his flag. And this is also quite apt because he was the king of Madhya Desha. Madhya Desha is what is fertile plains of Punjab. So for them, agriculture and plow was an important thing. And therefore, it is logical that the flag should be, Shalya's flag should be this. Now come to Shikhandi. I'm coming back to Shikhandi. This is Shikhandi's flag. This was the Kapidwaja and Parthasarathi. This was Arjun. This was Shikhandi. What kind of a flag is this? There I was actually wrong. Okay, this is Arjuna's Kapidwaja and Krishna. Again, Kapidwaja, not in the standard text, but there is a shlok in another one, equally sort of respected translation. Chimi Vaidya has translated it, and he was called Bharatacharya by Tilak, Lokmanya Tilak. Bharatacharya because he had translated the Mahabharata, Bharatacharya. Now, see, I had never realized it until I read this, that how come this Kapi got to be the flag of Arjuna? Because Arjuna was the younger brother of Bhima, and Bhima was a Vayuputra. Hanuman is also Vayuputra, so they were stepbrothers. And Hanuman was from before, and therefore Hanuman is the elder brother of Bhima. And so Bhima requested him to be on his younger brother's flag and protect him. So this is kind of a nice gesture. So therefore, I have cited this shlok. Now coming to Shikhandi's flag, I was wrong. When I saw this, I thought these are claws. Actually, afterwards I realized now that they are the scratches on the that particular piece of stone. And these bent legs You should have given me a hint right away if I was not a city-bred girl who had never seen a donkey until I was 13 years old. So this front view, you can see the long ears, and this is what Dr. Zamkedkar, when he wrote the foreword, and I did not want to correct myself because I said this must be known that you can see, therefore I put a photo of the donkey also. You can see how the back legs are bent. So where this is actually back legs which are bent, I had thought this half is facing this way, and therefore I was confused. I called it a vyala. It's not vyala. Dr. Zamkedkar explained that this is Niruti. It's a woman. You can see that it is a woman. She's riding a donkey. That means she is Niruti, and she is the opposite of Aditi, the mother of all gods, and donkey is her mount. And donkey is also considered inauspicious. So therefore that Shikhandi is definitely has a inauspicious dwaja, but the other things that came out of this is that you may have read in history that after Shahaji Raje, that is father of Shivaji, his Jagir was ruined and put to flames by Murar Jagdev, and symbolically he had plowed it with a plow pulled by donkeys. In Marathi it said Gadvacha Nangar Firavla. What does it imply? That means it says that he wants to declare the land as inhabitable, inauspicious, and not cultivable anymore. And by the same token, when you want to restore it, you plow it again with white bulls with horns that are capped with gold. And this was done by Shivaji. Jijabai had it done through Shivaji. So there is another aspect of donkey which is associated with improper behavior, and that is attributed to Ravana because he abducted Sita. That was wrong, and therefore in Ellora, cave 21, Ravan shaking Kailas, you have Ravan, but you notice that 9 heads are human, but the 10th head is that of a donkey. So this is where these minute things help us understand. So now I come to Ramayana. About time I came to Ramayana. Sorry, I have to go faster. This is the Ramayana panel. Again, 11. Only one panel is in place. The other 2 fragments are fixed helter-skelter. Again, they are not in order. But again, the same thing about the size and the position. There's a central figure is Ram and Lakshman. This is a piece, another piece where Marichavada, these are things we know. But this is unusual, and this is unusual, and this is unusual, and you don't see these in other places. Another thing, these are little passwords like that tell you which is which. So this, I'm going to go back to this slide. You see the slide on this side, this panel is this figure, on this side is this figure. This side, this is a kid, a lamb, a young one of a lamb. Because lamb is the normal common sacrifice in the yajna. Yajna denotes Nagara Sanskriti. This is Balakanda and Ayodhya Kanda. Whereas this is a predator, represents forest Aranya, and this is Aranya Kanda and Kishkinda Kanda. Why is this relevant? For me, it was important because this allowed me to identify this Parnakuti with Lakshman guarding it, because it was built twice. Once, okay, so this is to illustrate again the enlarged pictures. This is the predator and this is the lamb. The Parnakuti or the Aparnashalas, they were built once at Chitrakoot, but Chitrakoot Parnakuti was in the Ayodhya Kanda, end of Ayodhya Kanda, whereas Panchavati Parnakuti was in the, this was in the Ayodhya Kanda, this was in the Aranya Kanda. This is shown by the predator, and therefore it was conclusively that episode. Now these are things that are important. This is Kabanda episode. He was an ogre who was, who after they killed him and sort of cremated him, got his divine powers again, and he is showing, you can see the gesture. is showing Ram and Lakshmana how to go to Rishyamukha Parvat, because they had no idea who had taken Sita and where she was. Gestures again. You have Sugriva questioning, who are these people? Then you have Hanumana as a yati, that means as an ascetic pretending to be one. This is Lakshmana with folded hands, because they came to Sugriva seeking his help. And this, I'm sure, is this in this episode, this is not depicted, because Kabandha also told Rama that you must, because Sugriva is, see, he's suspicious here. Sugriva is suspicious of anyone because he's been fighting Vali. So therefore, you must assure him by swearing on his weapon. So you have Rama here with a sword in hand. There's Ram, there's Lakshman, then there's Sugriv, three with folded hands because they're swearing on the weapon, on friendship. Whereas these are the other four, Hanuman and Nala, the other monkeys. So this was swearing on his sword, was a Samashraya Niti, Yukti, that Kabandha has also advised Rama. That means somebody who is in the same, who has gone through the same predicament is more likely to be sympathetic to you. And Sugriva's wife was taken by Vali. So now this is just another example of how some entertainment is provided. This was the scene after the wedding, after Rama had picked up the bow of Shiva in Sita Swayamwar. When the Swayamwar was announced, I mean, the Janaka said, I'll give you my daughter. Rama said, I must get permission from my father. Now, this is a map. This is Mithila. It's almost on the border of Nepal. This is where the Sita and Janaka were there. And this is Ayodhya, where Dashrath was. So somehow he had to be conveyed the message and brought back for the wedding to take place. And this is just a flight of fancy. Actually, the text says horses, but it does mention that they had to spend 3 nights to rest the mounts. But here they have shown camel just to indicate, I think, that they add some spice and indicate that they were the faster vehicles. This is also a very important episode. Now, this is Ram and Lakshman in the center. And you can see that they are not the obedient Lakshman following Ram. They are equal, they're facing each other, and this gesture is very important. Because this was the scene where Ram and Lakshmana go to Kaushalya's place and Lakshman is very angry. He says, this is not right, this is unfair. I am quite capable of fighting anybody who comes in the way, and I'll make you the king again. Now, how do I know this is the episode? Because there is this shlok, there's this verse that says that, I will not bother you with the Sanskrit, but what it says is, Agrahastam Vidunvas. That means he's shaking, he's waving his right hand like an elephant waves his trunk. And he's very angry. And this gesture confirms that what I'm saying is right, that he says that don't blame fate. You must take charge. I will take charge and I'll do this. Of course, Rama, being Purushottama, he dissuades him. He quiets, he sort of cools him down and counsels him. So now I come to the last part, which I should have reached a long time ago. This is the Triadic Panels, most enigmatic of them all. The reason for them, we do not know, because there is no evidence. All we know is they're brought from somewhere else. They were not there originally. And my contention is they were probably meant as for the novitiates to learn how to meditate without a physical image. So first they would learn with the physical images, and because the Nathas, this was a Natha sect temple, and Nathas, their sadhana involved awakening the Kundalini, and this was internal sadhana, not external worship. And these were the Triadic panels. That is my contention. And these are the panels. They are high up, mounted high up. Each of them has this composition that the central goddess is large, side goddesses are smaller. There are 2 goddesses. There are these makaras from whose mouths these creepers arise. Each creeper has a yogi seated in it. So these yogis, I think, symbolize Hatha Yoga, which is what they use for their sadhana to rouse the Kundalini. So similarly, this is a second panel, same format, central one large, side ones smaller, volutes, 6 volutes, 6 yogis. So this is the first panel, second panel. This is the, because it has Vainayaki. And these panels, there are 9 panels, and Vainayaki appears in 3 of them. So this is Vainayaki, this is Maheshwari, because the bull, this is the mouse, this is the bull, and this is the house. So this is Brahmani. Again, yogis in the volutes. Now, this is a very important, again, this is a composite. That means 2 panels have been put together to look like a single panel, but they are not, because you see this half of the panel is different. The Makara has a rider and there are 5 yogis and so on, but there is a sadhaka actually standing in front, which gives a lot of credence to my hypothesis. He is the same. If this was a seated image, then he is the same size. It's not like other images that you see, Vishnu image or any other image. You see the sadhaka at the feet is much smaller, but this is a regular, almost the same size sadhaka. Now this is the 9th panel. Again, Vainayaki appears here. Again, yogis, and you see the blow up shows that different asanas. Like this one is actually turned his back. I think this is his back side. And yoga pattas and all kinds of asanas. And the 10th panel has Bhairavas. Again, central large, 2 either side. And I have found Abhinav Gupta's Tantra Loka describes the Trika. And there he calls that, has names. The central one is Bhairava Sadbhava, Rati Shekhara, and Navatman. And I'm taking recourse to Dr. Devangana Desai's thesis that when she explained the Khajuraho temples, the Kandhariya Mahadev, the sculptures on that temple relate to Shaiva Siddhanta, because this was a Shiva temple. On the Lakshman temple, which is actually a Vaikuntha Vishnu temple, is Vaishnava Pancharatra portrait on the outside. So therefore, if Bhuleshvara Shivalaya is a Natha sect temple, then it is quite logical that they should have something that helps the sadhana, the how to reach the goal through physical symbols. And therefore, this is my contention. I have no other proof. There are no inscriptions, no evidence, textual evidence to say what these are. But I think it's logical to think that they are related somehow to the worship through of the Trika. And I say that they are not. It is a riddle still, but the panels are as important as an undeciphered manuscript. Now, just, and this is a figure I have not put in my book because I do not understand it, but this is again from Alexis Sanderson, who was again a great scholar of Abhinav Gupta. And this is what is written in this depiction. You see, there are again 3 goddesses, Para, Parapara, and Apara, and they're all related to the Bhairavas. And this I have written here again, that the mandala throne and the 3 goddesses enthroned upon it are visualized, mind you, this is for dhyana, but they're visualized along the axis of internal sensation during internal worship. And this is from Tantra Loka, Abhinav Gupta. Now, this is the visualization. If a person, a raw novice initiate starts to, he cannot directly do this mentally. That is my contention. And this is just a game of dice I wanted to show you, because this is part of another panel, unidentified as yet, but these are Shiva and Parvati. They're playing Dyuta, and these are the dice, and his fingers, he is indicating that what he has is, the dana is 2. And David Gordon White has a full book on dice, the game of dice, and its symbolism. And it is a metaphor that draws correspondence between a game of chance and the way things are in the world of men. And here, a throw of 2 means Dwapara Yuga. So maybe this is a way of indicating what the rest of the panel, what was the time that when it took place. So thank you. And I have taken 15 minutes more than required. So thank you.
15 minutes more doesn't really matter because time really flew, Dr. Kanitkar. A
Thank
lot of questions have come in. But before I go into the questions, what is the most widely accepted date of the founding of the temple?
No evidence. No evidence other than, see, I had no time to, my first whole chapter in the
Uh-huh.
book, 40 pages, is visual evidence,
Okay.
style, the way there's a distinctive style. I mean, you can see the pillars are different.
Mm-hmm.
You can identify one set as Bhumija, that means that is 11th century, 12th century,
Uh-huh.
late 11th, early 12th. But the others are definitely Chalukya type or Hoysala type. That means southern influence. Somebody who has reconstructed or helped somehow must have been a monastery nearby, which was, somehow vandalized. And another example, another reason, logic to me is that these triadic panels are not yoginis, but they're mounted on top, because yogini temples, normal yogini temples are hypethral. That means they're open to sky because they're khechari. That means they can fly. Khe is sky, and chara, that means to move. They can move in the sky. And therefore, all the yogini temples are open, hypethral, and that must have been the idea of the people. Obviously, it was not an Natha sect that reconstructed them, and therefore they put them up on top. Actually, that is good because that is how they were not disfigured. But that is a possibility. So no date, I cannot say anything. Only thing I can say is that 13th, because the repairs are also well made. You can see the difference in the uh, workmanship of the Peshwa time temples, and the iconography on that is simple. It's not the kind that reaches the standards of these other two. That means by 13th century, they were restored. They had already been vandalized, whether vandalized purposely because it is too early. Even 1296 is when Alauddin came to the south. So there
Mm-hmm.
was no other reason. There was no other potential normal usual suspect. But the possibility of an earthquake, perhaps. Bateshwar is the classic example that is documented, where there was total dismantle. I mean, they were all fragments because they had probably been shaken. There was no vandalization. So reason we do not know, but it was there and it was restored. At least twice it was restored, and there's a lot of evidence. A lot of evidence.
So I think that answers Ankur's questions. Have the statues fallen off by themselves or have they been removed by invaders? So you've
No, there were
answered.
no invaders yet,
Correct.
actually, until because when Alauddin Khilji came, he
Mm-hmm.
came with just a few soldiers, and
Mm-hmm.
his only aim was looting. He was not. I mean, he was not interested in spreading the word of the prophet or anything like that. He just wanted loot, and that is why he went straight to Devgiri and he came back. He went back to Delhi. So it was not until then, and this is before that. The reconstruction, restoration, whatever you want to call it, must have taken place late 12th century.
And
They do that.
the current shikhar of the temple is was added in the 18th century according to Bharat. What would have been the style of the original shikhar, he wants to know.
Bhumija, Bhumija. I tell you why. Because there is something which is considered a style,
Mm.
and that style involves a particular design. It's like a signature.
Mhm.
Actually, style comes from stylus, which is a pen, which is like a signature that you
Correct.
inscribe. So that style is an identification, and that mark, particular people leaf motif, that Adam Hardy calls people leaf motif, is there on the central shrine, but not on the pillars that support the triadics. That means they are different, and the original must have been, and the star shaped. The plan is stellate and very clearly, like, I mean, I even had, oh dear, am I, should I unmute it? It doesn't work, but anyway. So I showed I couldn't, Hardy didn't have enough time, but I showed Adam Hardy the blown up photographs, and he agreed with me that likely it was a Bhumija Shikhar, the central original.
I know this following is a very, very broad question, but what are the differences and the similarities between the Ambarnath Temple and the Bhuleshwara Shivalaya?
Great. Actually, that is one of my other topics. My favorite topic is these are markers of social history. That means you can tell how society was. Ambarnath is definitely Shaiva Siddhanta, 11th century, very much, I mean, they are very staunch. I mean, there's no Vishnu image on the Garbhagruha of Ambarnath. And they're all Puranic stories, and there are all gods and goddesses. This Bhuleshwar, at the central shrine, only has Surasundaris and Bhairava and Chamunda, which are related to the Nathas, and also only one Mahishasuramardin. The niches are empty, but we doubt very much whether they would have had no Puranic stories, no stories from Purana, because this is not a place where you are seeking God's help.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking to, at least the Nathas had that, what is it called? Atmanirbhar. So they all wanted you to be independent and not seek the help of God, but see for yourself. So I call these Mahabharata stories as case studies. They're more case studies. You have to see what they did, how they acted, and whatever. Then you, using that as a guide, you can choose what you want to do, how you want to be.
Are there any records of what tools would have been used for these carvings?
I think only the normal chinni and hathoda.
Uh-huh.
And there are some grades. I mean, there is something about the geology of the stones that is used. I put that as a footnote in the book, that some kind of stones take a good polish, and those are the black stones that are used for the Mahabharata panels. But like the difference between Hoysala sculptures, they're very, very ornate because the stone is softer. Our stone is very hard, so difficult to carve, and yet it is done well. That means no other evidence of tools. That, I mean, even the actually, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but when you go to the fact that the architect is called a Sutradhar, is holding a sutra. That was the only tool he had to make a plan
Mm-hmm.
of 28 angles, using just one peg that he would fix in the ground, and with a string, draw a circle, and then divide the circle into equal 28. I can't do it with CAD CAM. So these, I mean, these are the truths. They took years, and the secrets were passed on only from the father to son. That was another thing, that they had to die out, because after the master craftsman was gone, there was nobody to, because they didn't know how to.
Question from Abhay, request actually to elaborate on Nath Sampradaya and its rise and presence in the Mahabharata.
Natha is not present in the Mahabharata. Nathas are not present in the Mahabharata. Nathas, the first is Matsyendra Nath. What I'm saying is the way they have depicted Mahabharata
Okay.
is the Natha influence. That means the Mahabharata panels are everywhere. All the Hoysala temples, all the, even Ellora, I told you, one whole side is Mahabharata. But they're 1, 2, 3, 4, like they're just the stories told, you know. They are not meant to educate a person or to make a person introspect or to make a person think. And that is why nowhere you find 1, 2, 3, 4, the Drona, Karna, Shalya, Parva, where everywhere something is done which is wrong, unethical. Karna, it was, this is a Dharma Yuddha. So if his wheel gets stuck, Arjun had to stop and wait until he freed it. But then this Krishna is quoted in the Mahabharata, telling you right from the Eko hi yogosya bhavedvadaya. There is only one way he can be killed, and his wheel gets stuck, it's because of his bad behavior, for which he has this curse, and therefore you are not responsible. So go ahead. So Karna is killed that way. Bhishma is killed by putting Shikhandi in front. Drona is killed by saying that Ashwatthama is dead. And only Shalya is killed straightforward. So these things are something that you would probably try and sweep under the carpet, but here there's, you know, they're shown. to justify even Ram and Lakshman arguing. That is something I've never seen before. And that is 100% because it matches. See, he has made sure that Sapati Acharya has made sure that it can be unambiguously identified. Now that gesture of Lakshman, where
the arm.
yeah, his right arm is waving, and
Yeah.
they're facing each other. Normally, you just find him docilely following Rama.
Correct.
He's not doing that. And that whole Varnan is there, that description is there in the Ramayana. But that is what he was trying to do. Even Kabandha is talking about Samashraya Yukti. Who do you go to seek help? You are likely to get help from someone who has gone through the same thing. Samashraya Yukti, that means Vali has usurped Sugriva's wife. Raman has taken Rama's wife. So Rama should seek, and he's more likely to get help from Sugriva. But at the same time, Sugriva is very suspicious because he's been pursued by Vali throughout their own world, and he is only safe in Rishyamukha because Vali has been cursed that he cannot enter Rishyamukha. So therefore, Sugriva is suspicious. Therefore, Kabandha tells him to swear on your weapon in front of the holy fire. Swear your friendship. That is something you don't see it depicted everywhere. So something to justify the logic behind everything. So there's no Natha in Mahabharata. 100% not. Matsyendranath is 10th century.
Similar question concerning Natha. Does Nath Sampradaya have competition with Bhakti or Ganpatya or Bhagavatiya sects?
No. Natha is a way of, because they do not worship a particular god. They, of course, Shakti Yukta Shiva. That means it's not Shiva by himself, not Shakti by himself. They are not Shaiva, they are not Shakta. And they believe in only that, and they do not believe in image worship. No external worship. No external worship. No puja, acharya, all that. They only believe in developing yourself so that you can acquire enough control over the body so that you can control the mind, and then you can reach the ultimate, that kind of. So I don't know whether there is no competition that way. See, competition is between people. And Ganpati is not competing with Shiva. It's the people who think that, I actually at one of the seminars, I met a person who said, how can you say that Shiva is the greatest? I said, I don't say it, that's the Ambarnath Temple. He says, because my grandmother, even when she, they do the floor with the cow dung, she says she doesn't go horizontally. She goes in vertical stripes. The Vishnu, because that Vaishnava Nam is, so these are people. There are no, right now we cannot identify. We follow Shivaratri, we follow Lakshmi Pujan. We worship everybody only on that day and then forget about them the rest of the year. But anyway, there is no competition per se, I don't think so, particular sect. But they were very, very attuned to the common man, not the elite. That is why these Varkaris, they were the result. Jnaneshwar was probably one of those first ones. His parents also seem said to have gone to the Pandari, that, the Vari. That is what is said. So that is a different way of thinking. Everybody the same. And that is why that Paishachi language is important. You don't see that anywhere else.
The depth of your study, Dr. Kanitkar, makes me want to ask you, how long have you spent studying this particular temple?
I think we started around, Dilip and I started, I think 2008.
Okay.
And it took a long, it takes a long time because things don't immediately unravel,
Yeah.
That Ramayana bit, because I'm looking at it, I'm wondering what is it? I thought it was Bandhu Prem, they're friends. But that is on this scale and the gesture. And then when you start reading, you realize that, suddenly you find that it says something about the hand being waved, and then whole tirade, and that makes you think. Yeah.
And I think we'll just take this one last question. Was Brahmendra Swami instrumental in raising funds for Bajirao's battle campaigns?
uh, he raised funds, but not for battle campaigns. I don't think
Okay.
so. At least whatever is written in the biography, like I told you, he even Malshiras, which is right next to, actually Yawat, we say Yawat because Yawat was the nearest railway station when Henry Cousins went there. But actually this is in the Gram Panchayat of Malshiras, and Malshiras has a huge bara. There are orchards. He had planted, I mean, those tamarind trees have survived because we are not fit people. I mean, we do not know how to maintain. And that is your motto, Khaki. But even orchards, mango orchards have perished because they need looking after. Tamarinds are green. So Brahmendra Swami, I don't think he was a wheeler dealer, no doubt about that. But his interests were more for the common people. That is, I think so.
That brings us to the end of our questions, Dr. Kanitkar. Thank you so much. I mean, the knowledge was just oozing out. And thank
I
you,
think
everybody, for the very, very nice questions.